Welcome to the Holo Health Podcast, where our mission is to help you become truly healthy. We believe that health has many parts, and when we understand true health, we can experience freedom. Each episode features a practical conversation where we look to make pursuing health both simple and clear. I'm Trevor Deal, one of your hosts, and I'm excited for today's episode where we walk through why small changes might be the better way forward. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back with another episode of the Holo Health Podcast. I'm sitting down with none other than himself, Alex Cottingham. Alex, it seems like every single time we do an episode and I ask how you're doing, you say swell, so I decided to switch it up today. Hope that's okay with you, Chief. I would love to know if you could describe how you're feeling and describe it with what animal would best describe that and why.
Trevor, thank you so much. I have two comments to start us. One, it would be a golden retriever. In college, I was a personal trainer. There was like 10 or 15 of us on the team. And at the end of the year, they like assigned each one of us an animal just to describe our personalities. And they gave me Doug off of the movie Up, the Disney Pixar movie Up, like the so funny accurate dog one. And I'm like, I kind of was offended, but I kind of was inspired at the same time. So I think it's fairly reasonable to say that. The second one is the reason I keep saying swell, not the reason, but a fun fact is I went through like a surfer type phase in like middle school ish. And I would frequently view Quicksilver. That's the brand, right? Whatever. And then there's another surfing brand named Swell. So shameless plug for Swell. If you go to swell.com or just Google Swell, it's like a surfing brand. I would actually buy and like view their stuff a lot. But I don't think I've ever been on their website in like 12 years, but that's a quick fun fact for us to get started today.
For those that don't know, he's from Michigan, so that's just confusing in general. And then second, who would have ever thought the first company we mention other than Holo Health is Swell?
I honestly, like I said, don't think I've thought of that company in 12 years, but it just was a flashback that I was like, you know what? I just need to give them a shameless plug for their amazing childhood memories they instilled in my brain.
Maybe I tagged them in a podcast video.
That'd be awesome.
Anyways, Alex, I just had a friend text me this, and I thought it was great, interesting, and funny, so I figured I'd share it. It also plays well into our conversation for today. He texted me and said, "Hello, health guru." That was the first message. I chuckled because he obviously doesn't know you yet.
How did it feel to be titled health guru?
Cool, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I'm obviously not a health guru.
I'm just in awe and inspired to be in the presence of a health guru.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex. And then he said, I need something that will help me not get tired at 3 p.m. And then he followed that text up immediately with, and it's not bad for my health.
I love that question. That's hilarious. Just repeat it one more time for the listeners.
So the question was, listeners, my friend texted me and said, I need something, or what is something, a product that will help me not get tired at 3 p.m., but is good for my health. It's very funny. Alex and I briefly discussed this beforehand. The answer is sleep and nutrition. in like a very simple way, but I'm going to unpack it more for him. And if you want to figure it out, stay tuned for a future podcast episode. But that tees up the conversation today well. And why it does is we're going to be revisiting the conversation about habits. We talked about it 2 episodes ago. The last episode, we talked about choosing optimization. And today we're talking about big changes. And when we think of big changes, we think of habits that we have to put into play and what we need to do to see big changes, et cetera. And so I thought it would be helpful, Alex, if you just kick us off and review what a habit is.
Yeah, a habit's a cultural buzzword that without clarity can have a lot of confusion because there could be 100 different definitions in people's brains. In short, a habit is your go-to default mode. It's your autopilot. It's when you're not thinking, this is what you will do. It's the way your brain has created neural pathways to tackle life's demands. So for example, when I get in a car and I ritualize that behavior long enough driving, I don't need to think about how to turn on my car anymore. I know my foot immediately goes on the brake. I click my push start. I put my hand on like the handle, whatever, and I don't think about it. That's just what my brain has automated to tackle life. So it could be brushing your teeth, like literally getting up and drinking water, picking up your phone when you get into bed. Whatever you have done consistently enough, your brain pretty much automatizes or systematizes, made it a ritual. It's your go-to default. It's your mindless thought process that you do to tackle life's demands.
No, that's awesome. Well said, I would say. And it's insane how spread out this is through our daily rhythm. And we don't even think about it, talking about picking up phone, or maybe it's even going to get a cup of coffee or water or eating a snack certain times a day, brushing teeth. All of these different things we've kind of built into this system in our brain to be automated. And I think it's interesting because when we talk about big changes, habits are a very central part to that. You could call it a cornerstone to change. But here is something that I want to just kind of get out on the front end of this episode for our listeners and people who are tuning in, is a myth that we have to make big changes to see big results. And why I'm saying that is culture kind of positions us to believe, if I want to get incredibly fit, then this week, I need to go to the gym 7 days a week. I need to be there an hour and a half. I need to completely clean out my refrigerator, my pantry, replace it with only good foods. I need to cut off certain people in my life. And if I do all that, then I'll see big changes in 90 days. And that's just a myth. That's not true. What that's going to do is it's going to lead to burnout. It's going to lead to frustration. It's going to lead to guilt and shame because you feel like you can't do it, but other people can do it. And it's just a myth that we want to debunk and honestly spur a conversation, because Alex paints a really clear picture in The Holo State, his book that he wrote about 7 habits to becoming truly healthy. And he talks about this idea of the aggregation of marginal gains. That alone just sounds like it should be a question. What is the aggregation of marginal gains on like the opening page of the SAT, like the writing portion? It's like, what is the aggregation of marginal gains? And then you can write a whole essay on it. But Alex talks about that in The Holo State. And Alex, I want you to first touch a little bit on what I shared about the big changes, and then let's just have a conversation about marginal gains.
Well, let's go back to what you said earlier. Is I feel like underneath this conversation, Trevor, is the motivation to change, right? It's whether it's the healthy or unhealthy dissatisfaction with your current reality, whether it's you're looking in the mirror and you're overweight, or you want to start a business, or whatever it is. You want to write a book, you want to rekindle a relationship, you want to simply stop watching as much TV. You want something different than what you are currently doing. And here's what's interesting, and why we're talking about habits, we're going to get into marginal gains, is that psychologists actually predict that over 60% of our life is on autopilot, is what they predict, is subconscious, is our habits. That if over half of our lives is just automatized, then that is giving us a specific direction in our life. We are heading in this direction and we're not even consciously thinking about it, because we have instilled over the past years, 5, 10, 15, however many years, these specific habits. So that's why when we wake up one day and we're like, I want to make a change, we're dissatisfied with reality, we look in the mirror or whatever, we're like, okay, enough is enough. And I know me and you can relate to this, because we're more like, cut the cold turkey. Let's go 100% in. If we're going to start a business, we're going to get fit, we're going to lose 10 pounds, whatever that is, we're going to go all in. So I do think that there is a specific audience that can really resonate more, because there are some people out there, they're like, you know what, like, I don't really think that, which is fine. But there is a big group of people that think in order to make a big change or a big result, obtain a big result, they need to make a big change.
Right.
And that's what we're talking about, is that is not true. And that's what we're talking about, is when we can change our habits, that's when we will ultimately reshape our trajectory. And that's where the aggregation marginal gains, heck, if I was in high school, I could not write an essay when I was in high school, but thankfully I've studied it now. All that means, if you don't remember anything else, all that means is getting 1% better every single day, because it's sustainable. You can continue that.
Yeah, Alex, no, I think that was well said. There's two different types of audiences. And I think that the larger of the two is the group of people who have experienced this frustration. Both of us have experienced it at points in our lives. At this point, we understand this idea of 1% better. And what I'd love for you to do is to give an example, talk about something right now that our listeners can relate to, something that within the past couple of years that you decided you wanted to do, had a misconception about it, and then had a realization where it comes back to this 1% better.
So getting 1% better, all that means is basically finding one thing each day that you can improve on. That's going to align with who you want to become, the change you want to see. Okay. So personally, for me, the idea that I kind of want to quickly extrapolate was the process of writing the book. I know that's not super relatable because not many people just casually write a book, but the one that it kind of hits home for me is this is where I believe this myth initially is, if I wanted to write this book, then I needed to literally read every other book out there. I need to have multiple conversations, collect all the data. And then once I do, I'm going to isolate myself, stay up long hours of the day, restrict all my social gatherings, and just write and write and write and write and write. And I'm going to bust it out in 3 months, 5 months, whatever it is, restrict everything, and then make the book and then resume reality. And here's the thing. I did that to a point, not that extreme, but thankfully I had the luxury of writing during COVID. So I did have a little bit more time than usual. But I remember days when it was like 5-6 hours staring at the screen and I'm like, okay, I have no more creativity going. And here's the thing. I hit that wall. And what happened was I hit that wall. I hit that frustration. I hit that like kind of creative block. And then I probably wouldn't write for another 2 weeks, you know? And that kind of led me on a very extreme up and down journey that, just a quick personal side note, is I wrote the book. I reread the book multiple times. I sent it to about 8 or 10 people. They were like, hey, this is great. I read it one more time. This is probably a 2 or 3 month process. I actually said, you know what? I need to completely change this. It was 50,000 words. I took out 40,000 words. I kept 10,000 words. I kept 1/5 of it. I rewrote an additional 60,000 words. So now the book is like 70,000 words, completely redid it. And you know how I did? Instead of just sitting in front of my computer, doing it all day, every day, I said, okay, I'm going to write one paragraph or one section for 5 days a week. And I would plan those specific times, whether it was 30 minutes or 60 minutes. And I got 1% better every single day. And you know what? It was a more sustainable route. I continued it. It was a more enjoyable route. And it led me to now consider myself a writer. It wasn't a 3-month plunge off the diving board where I was like, okay, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to write a book and whatever. I now consistently engage in writing. I'm writing book number 2. I write the newsletter. I love writing. And now that has led me to believe I am a writer. And here's the thing, that identity change fuels my behaviors. I consistently write. I write in the book at least twice a week. I write the newsletter at least once or twice a week. So now habitualizing that behavior has led me to make a more sustainable, joyful change.
Wow. That's a great example, Alex. And I want to talk a little bit more about the identity piece here, because I think that that's relatable. And listeners, I don't know if you really picked that up, but when Alex allowed himself to focus on 1%, how he can be consistent in small chunks every day, he then started to believe that he is a writer. Another example would be if you train for a marathon and you're running consistently for every day, let's say even a little bit, just for 12 weeks. you would consider yourself a runner because you're repeating that action. You're building a consistent habit that obviously the time increases, but you're starting at a small amount and you're increasing over time. In that you would consider yourself a runner. You're training, you're an athlete, you are running every day. In the same vein, Alex was writing every single day. And I love, Alex, how you talked about you enjoyed it and that it ultimately led you to believe that you are a writer. And look at you now. I mean, you're crunching through book 2. You're writing the 3 and 30 newsletter to help other people with just deep insight. And Alex, I would love, I thought of a question that I just think this is important because we talk about what true health is, managing the tension of our health. And I want you to share a little bit and talk about how when we focus on this 1% better, not only can we make it more sustainable, but why this is important for true health because of the way it relates to overall each aspect. Does that make sense?
I think so. Ask your question one more time in a different way, just so that I know.
So, in the vein of true health, when it comes to getting 1% better, talk about why a truly healthy lifestyle includes 1% better versus I'm making big changes or thinking I need to do something drastic.
True health is the embodiment of every area of health, right? That's what we preach. That's what we teach. That's what we believe, that getting 1% better in each area of those in our lives is the only way forward, because that is the only sustainable way. That if I were to make a big change physically, that is now when I'm going back to episode 2, I am spending a good majority of my time, attention, effort, resources, whatever, in that specific area, physically, mentally, emotionally, relationally, spiritually. And due to that, it is going to detract from the other areas. So getting 1% better, finding that one thing that you can do, you can get 1% better physically, mentally, emotionally every single day. I mean, whether it's a 1 minute, 5 minute, 30 minute, whatever small deposits you are making, that is better because you are tending to the balance. You are managing that tension. You are keeping, like you said, that frisbee spinning on your finger the best you can, rather than letting that seesaw go all the way up and all the way down, if that makes sense, unbalancing that balance. So that's why the intersection of the 1% and true health is so important, because if we don't and we do strive for that big change, we're just unbalancing the balance.
That's exactly what I wanted you to say. I love that you brought back up the frisbee and seesaw. That's not specifically, but I'm glad you did bring up the frisbee. And what I want to touch on again, Alex, another follow-up question of your example was it. I just kind of understand that in either situation, big or small, you have to put yourself in an environment to do that habit, right? And we know because we've studied it and we've seen it play out in our own lives and the lives of those around us, that the environment that we put ourselves in dramatically affects what we do. It affects the habits that we have, the decisions that we make, how we make those decisions, how quickly, slowly, etc. And so talk about how you primed that environment, why that was important for you. And let's just walk through that a little.
Yeah. The reason why the power of your environment intersects getting 1% better, stop making big changes, is because your environment is the fuel to your change. Another myth in culture is that you just got to want it more. You got to desire it. Once someone wants to lose 10 pounds, all they got to do is set their mind to it and they're going to do it. That if you just got to want it more. And I honestly believe that before I was educated and before I was mature, that the people who have the biggest change or the best results are the people who have the greatest willpower, where in reality, that is not the case at all. That honestly, I think the invisible hand that shapes all human behavior is your environment, because willpower and motivation alone will only last you so long, but it's what you come back to, the community you're around, your kitchen at home, your standing desk in the office, your workout shoes in the back of your trunk, your app screen, the apps on your phone. It's whatever you find yourself, what you are embodying, that current situation, that's your environment. And whatever action is going to pose the least amount of friction, that's when you're going to do. So if you can prime your environment to allow the desired habits to be the easiest habits, the most obvious habits, most attractive and satisfying habits, then your environment is going to help you go along that direction, because your environment is going to ultimately be the fuel to the fire that's going to keep that sustainable fire going, if that makes sense.
It definitely does, Alex. And we have a little bit longer listeners, and I want to give an example of how this is playing out in my life currently, just to hopefully paint a picture and to kind of put everything and kind of tie everything to a bow. Is we talked about that when we focus on getting 1% better every single day, not only will it be more sustainable, but we'll find more joy, and we will see this mental identity shift in our own lives for whatever we're trying to do. So in Alex's example, like you said, he wrote every single day. He's finding joy. It's sustainable. He's not burning himself out. He's not being inconsistent. He's focusing on that 1% better. And then because he's been doing it for so long, has this realization, this enlightenment that I am a writer, and that fuels him to continue writing. An example that I'm trying to put into practice right now is journaling, and consistently writing down thoughts and emotions and feelings that I've had from my day, right? I want to be very self-aware. That's something that in my Holo project self-awareness, a little tease at something coming down the way for you guys, is just to be self-aware in the assessment I took, that that was kind of lowest on the totem pole for me. That's something that I want to improve on. And rather than saying, all right, I'm going to journal for 30 minutes every single night, I realized pretty quickly I don't do well at night trying to journal. I'm exhausted. There's other things going on. It was cumbersome to add to my already routine. And so what I did was I put a different journal next to my coffee, or next to my reading chair where I read in the mornings. And what I decided is that I set a 2-minute timer, and I write for 2 minutes about the previous day. And after 2 minutes, I put it away. And my goal is to do that for a month, 2 minutes a month, every single day. That's pretty marginal, pretty small. But what I'm doing is I'm building this consistency, and I'm making it really easy on myself. Building this habit really easy. And then I'm going to start introducing more time to it. So you're adding another element, or growing another element to this ability to build a habit. And there's several different people who talk about that kind of idea. But I want to point out too, is that the environment, I realized that if I did it right before bed, I wasn't going to be able to be consistent. So I put myself in a space that I'm already reading, I'm already quiet, I'm near a pencil, and my thoughts are clear because it's the start of the day. And so I share that to say, one, I'm working on that too. Alex is working on that in different ways. He's writing a book, number 2. And so he's working on that, for example, in that. And then the back end is that's the idea, right? It's painting that picture of 1% better every single day in each aspect, right? That has nothing to do with my physical health. That's all mental and emotional. And just trying to prime that environment to be successful in keeping that consistent.
Well said.
Thanks, Alex. You look like you wanted to say something. Listeners can't see you, but maybe one day. Anyways, Alex, that was a lot of really good stuff, and we're coming to a close and running out of time here, but how can I practically apply this to my life? If you could give a few pieces of advice to the listeners.
One, prime your environment. I know that's a little bit broad, but that's very practical. 2, decide on who you want to become rather than the outcomes you prefer. I'll say that again. Decide who you want to become rather than the outcomes you prefer. The old way is asking, how can I lose 15 pounds? The new way is asking, what would a healthy person do? Because when I decide, okay, instead of trying to lose 15 pounds, I want to actually become a runner. I want to become an athlete. I want to become a yogi. I want to become a CrossFitter, whatever that is. When you actually focus on the identity and embodying that, then you're going to much easier pursue that route, because you consider that that is who you are. The last thing I would say is that your health is simply a reflection of your habits. It's simply a 1% improvement or 1% decline every single day, whether it's getting up in the morning and journaling, whether it's 30 minutes of movement, whether that is listening to a productive podcast, whether that is spending time with your friends, whether that is sitting on the couch watching Netflix. Those are all shaping our identity and who we are today. Our current health, true health, everything, physically, mentally, relationally, all of that is a reflection of what we have done over the past however many years. Our health is a reflection of our habits. So if we want to change our health, we change our habits. That's the most practical thing we can do.
Great takeaway, Alex. Listeners, remember there's so much power in small daily change, and it's really easy to dismiss the value in making slightly better decisions. We call it 1%, or again, the aggregation of marginal gains. Sticking with the fundamentals is not very impressive. Falling in love with the 1%, the boredom, the daily rhythm is not super sexy, but it's going to make a difference. It works. Being consistent does pay dividends. Example, Alex's book number 2 on the way, so many other examples. And this can be something that you can do. I promise you can do in your own life. And Alex and I, Holo Health, we're always here, willing and able to have a conversation and discuss this even further with you. And if you found this episode encouraging in any way, we'd love for you to share it on Instagram and tag Holo Health. We will be sure to repost it. And if you could, share it with a friend. We hope that you have a blessed day and want everyone to know that you're loved. See ya.
See you guys.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Holo Health podcast. We hope that you enjoyed today's episode. We have some great things coming up the next several weeks, and the best way to stay up to date is through our newsletter. You can get those delivered to your inbox by signing up at holohealth.com/join. Remember that you are more than just physical, so make sure you treat your health that way. We appreciate you so much and hope that you have a blessed day.